outland development.
Camel's hump.
Yeah, Camel's Hump, Green Mountain Trail, Appalachian Trail, certainly those are areas that we would have to be very careful.
All right. I think the single biggest question that I was asked to ask the two of you today deals with transportation. With the average Vermonter driving more than 12,000 miles a year, 40% of Vermont's greenhouse gas emissions come from vehicles. In addition, the population is aging. So the question is, what would you do, what would your administration do to reduce the number of miles that Vermonters drive? And what would you do to increase the options available for Vermonters to get around? And we'll start with Lieutenant Governor Dubie.
Well, I can tell you one thing I would do, first of all, is I'd work to build more park and rides. I mean, that's a really low technology solution to encourage carpooling and car sharing and public transportations. And I know there's park and rides that aren't adequate now. It would seem like a really simple, easy first step that could help encourage carpooling. That's something I would do. Investments in our rails is another area where I think we have great opportunities. As a result of the ERA funding, we're going to have almost $70 million on the eastern corridor going from St. Albans to Brattleboro. That's a really exciting development. There is other Senator Jeffords earmark money that may be available, and would be my commitment to pursue those on the western rail corridor. There's a number of communities that do have. I chair the Governor's Commission on Healthy Aging. I've been all over the state asking seniors and senior centers these important questions. Is the transportation solutions in this community adequate? There's great opportunities to expand, and it would be important as our state ages to make sure those investments are there, those dollars are there for solutions to help seniors address these challenges.
Mark, my mother would kill me if she heard me saying this, but she's way down in deep south of Windham County. My sister's here and she won't tell, but she was driving Montpelier recently to visit me, and she said, "You know, Peter," she said, "for those of us whose birthday starts with an 8, we got to drive a long way off the highway to actually relieve ourselves, and we go more frequently than when we were young. The first thing I'm going to do is reopen the rest area, so we stop having to drive 4 or 5 miles to find a place to go. After that, we're going to have a more ambitious plan." I'm convinced that we're going to electrically powered cars. I want Vermont to be the first place in the country where if you have a plug-in, you can plug her in. Let's get that done. Second, ride share, tremendously important, huge potential. We know we live at the end of dirt roads like myself. You're not going to get a bus up there. Let's get much more aggressive about ride share, community-based people helping each other to get there. I think those two areas have a real potential to help us reduce our emissions.
Let me ask you a follow-up on this rest area question. Why
You're not going to tell my mom.
Why, as the Senate leader, didn't you already make that happen?
I've made some mistakes, and that was a really big one. It really was. And I'm going to tell you, as governor, and by the way, if you ask Senator Mosley, chair of the Transportation Committee, he'll tell you I whined and screamed all the way to our rest area decisions. But in the end, I had the power. I will use it as governor if you'll give me the chance to open the rest areas. First few months that I'm in, we get it done. I think it's a foolish way to save money.
Lieutenant Governor Dubie, where are you on the rest area question?
Well, here's a fact, folks, and I love humor. The fact is we face a $110 million deficit next year. So what we've faced in the past is not as great as what we face in the future. We're going to have senior citizens. We're going to have children. I go through the dairy farms at the Champlain Valley Fair, and a mom grabs me and she says, "Make sure you continue to fund Dr. Dinosaur. It's so important for our family farm to thrive." So I'm all in support of rest areas. I'd like to tell the federal government, we should be selling Vermont products at every rest area in our state. It should be a center of economic growth. We should push the federal government as hard as we can and say, "Hey, look, this is in the best interest for our state." But the fact is, we face a historic budget challenge the next legislative session. We're going to have to work to protect the most vulnerable. I'm all for opening up the rest areas, but we are going to have a challenging next year. We want to grow opportunities. My whole vision is about creating more opportunities, more economic growth, but we're going to have to set some priorities, and protecting the most vulnerable in our state, it has to be a priority.
I want to take another minute here. I heard the idea of opening up more parking rights, but could you both give me more ideas on how you could get Vermonters to drive less? Lieutenant Governor Dubie?
Well, I know one thing: the higher the price of fuel, people are going to make choices, and they're going to drive more fuel-efficient cars. You go to Plaisant down in Bennington County. Plaisant makes carbon composite components for Detroit. They're making Detroit. They're investing millions of dollars to get out in front of Detroit to meet the new CAFE standards. These cars are going to be corrosion-proof. They're going to be much lighter, much stronger. It's going to allow Detroit and the automotive sector to be able to produce cars that are much more fuel efficient. Vermont has a part of that. Electric cars. When you think of Energizer in St. Albans, Vermont, and SB Electronics in Barre, Vermont, making a power ring capacitor, that will be the critical component for the electric vehicle. That's another reason why I have some hesitancy just about closing down the Vermont Yankee. We could lead the nation in transformation to electric vehicle, but we could do that with some of the assets in our state. We have these great companies that are doing great things, and I'd like to make that a reality, in addition to encouraging smart things like van carpooling and all these other reasonable things that we can do immediately.
I think rideshare and making our downtowns, continuing to expand our downtowns as a place to live as well as work are the two huge potentials that I'll commit to. I just want to back up, Mark, to the comment just made. There is a choice in this election, and Brian's correct. His plan goes with cutting 9% from the budget next year, which we both agree we've got to do, but then he level funds the next 3 years to a 2% growth rate so that he can give $250,000 tax breaks, frankly, to the 1,400 Vermonters like myself who make $373,000 a year or more. That's not what I'm going to do as governor. Vermont's biggest problem is not people like me paying their income taxes, frankly, the 1,400 of us that have run successful businesses here. I think rest areas matter. I think Dr. Dinosaur matters. I think services to our low-income residents matter. I think getting the middle class benefits matters. That will be my priority, though it's a choice. We can do it if we don't give the wealthiest Vermonters, George W. Bush style, the trickle-down tax cuts to try to help them out. I can help myself.
Have either of you invested in an alternative energy company? Senator Shumlin?
Embarrassed to say, Mark, the whole thing's embarrassing because I came from very little and I made every penny in Vermont, but I don't handle it. And the answer is probably yes, but I got no idea what they bought. Having said that, part of my businesses is we're in the real estate business. And I have partnered with someone right in this room in ensuring that we are buying our power from a solar generation right here in Chittenden County. And we buy that through the programs, frankly, that I've helped promote, which allows any Vermonter to buy renewable power at a competitive rate. It's a great thing for Vermont, great example of how we build renewables, and I will admit proudly that my company is doing that.
Lieutenant Governor?
Well, I don't have any financial investments other than mutual funds, if that's the question, but in terms of making investments, I do have a Humboldt camp, and I have it totally powered by Real Solar, provides all the electricity in that camp, and I'm really excited to use that Vermont developed technology in Fairfield, Vermont. I heat my home with, I've invested in a Sam Daniels wood furnace in my home. I consider that renewable. We cut the firewood, we stack the firewood. It keeps us warm in the winter, and we don't buy Don Gilbert's Vermont natural gas, and that's a good thing too. No disrespect, Don. Beyond that, I've invested a lot in Vermont renewable companies in terms of my time as a Lieutenant Governor. As I said, I don't think there's been a prouder time in my service as a Lieutenant Governor when I went to the island that Senator Shumlin talked about, St. Lawrence Island in the middle of the Bering Sea, and met the Vermont-trained windsmiths that maintain the Northwind 100s. And when I asked them,